Andrea Deal is a registered homeopath, a clinical herbalist, the administrative and admissions director for the Canadian College of Homeopathic Medicine, and a musician. Andrea has been in private practice since 2001 when she graduated from CCHM. Andrea has a lot of incredible knowledge to share, and I'm excited to have an opportunity to chat with her today. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much for having me, Marcy.
Well, I'm so pleased to talk to you. I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the last couple of years, and I just feel you have some valuable information to share. I feel that anybody who turns to homeopathy has a really powerful story to share. And, will you share with us what drew you to homeopathy and ultimately to practice?
Sure, I'd love to. I guess the end of elementary school and the beginning of high school, I volunteered for a few years at the local hospital.
Mm.
And, I did that because it was something that my mom wanted me to do. So I didn't necessarily have any inclination to go into healthcare. But I think that experience really impacted me in a way that, I didn't realize at the time. So one of the experiences that really stood out for me there was I worked in the geriatric ward. And I worked in a few different wards, but the geriatric ward really stood out for me because I felt that my role there was primarily to to talk to people and to hear people's stories and share time with them. And so I think that kind of sense of isolation and desolation really impacted me as a young person and concerned me, but I don't think I really realized what it was that I was, feeling and experiencing at that time. And then years later in high school, a book came into my life. It was A Woman's Herbal, Hygeia by Janine Avrati. And that was really interesting. I had not had any exposure to natural medicine until that point, but definitely that book it gave me a window into something that interested me. I started connecting the dots between what I felt was lacking in the hospital and in the kind of illness or healing or end of life kind of situations. Fast forward years later, I was in art school trying to figure out what I wanted to do. There was quite a number of people practicing natural medicine, and I don't know if it was because I was on my own for the first time or if it was something that was special to the West Coast, but certainly having been from Ontario, I never remembered really seeing natural health practitioners here. Whereas in Victoria, there just seemed to be a ton of people working in natural healing. And so I think the first class that I took was with a friend. A friend was interested in Ayurvedic medicine. And so I took a class with him. And then, before I knew it, I was just taking all sorts of natural health classes. One thing that happened that was interesting was that every single class that I went to, someone mentioned something about this mysterious homeopathy thing that I had no idea what it was. And so I certainly wanted to follow whatever that clue was. And so I did take out some books from the library on homeopathy. But a book in particular that caught my eye, besides Dana Ullman's Discovering Homeopathy and the Thulkas's Science of Homeopathy, both of those were really fundamental in making me make the decision that homeopathy was the thing that I was really passionate about. But it was this book actually by a couple of practitioners that were in Victoria. And the book was called Paradox and Healing. I love this book so much. I definitely recommend it to anybody who's interested in healing. So it's very much a philosophy book about how do we have to change our minds and our spirits and our emotions in order to heal, or where are those places that we get caught that we can't get beyond and actually make the decision to stay ill because it's it's beyond what we think is possible for us to move beyond those concepts or those paradoxes. So anyway, after reading those books, I signed up for well, it was the Toronto School of Homeopathic Medicine at that time. Moved back to Ontario, and just totally had my mind blown.
I wanted to circle back. You talked about the different paradoxes in the process of healing. So can you share a little bit more about what that means to you and how that can either, propel or, ultimately stall our healing process?
I think sometimes life can throw some pretty ugly things at us. And, some of the things that people have overcome or have to overcome and live through creates something that's really hard to move beyond. And so definitely sometimes the paradox is, face what it is that you've been through that you feel has shaped you, and somehow move beyond it. And sometimes the preference is to stay living with pain than to have to face, the emotional pain, which can be excruciating. But
it's
definitely
a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work.
It is. It's a constant. But I feel like that's why we're here.
Right.
It is, to me, it is the only work. Everything else is secondary, I think, to kind of uncovering and rediscovering and creating who we are. And that's what really turns me on about healing, for sure.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful points in terms of, the whole mind, body, spirituality, existential connection that we all have. And if we're out of balance on any one of those levels, then that's when health wanes. And, and that's one of the great things about homeopathy is it does look at the pieces, all the different pieces of a person.
I love thinking about each person as a unique story being written. And, our job is to listen to the signs and symptoms of the body, which is essentially telling that story to us. And if we can listen closely and really try to understand the language of our body and what our bodies are trying to tell us, then we can give the body what it is that it's asking for, which is always asking for help when it's, off balance. And the remedies are these beautiful ways to kind of hold that potential for us, that future potential. I love the idea that a remedy is, giving a remedy is starting a conversation with the body. Most of us, spend our entire lives not even thinking about how the body's speaking to us. And, as we were talking earlier about, sort of identifying who we are with, our thoughts and our feelings and our diseases, if we're not thinking of ourselves outside of those things and we think that we are those things, then it's hard to traverse beyond those things. But the process of giving a remedy and then waiting to see what the body says, and then, responding to what the body says with, either more of the same remedy if the conversation's going well, or switching up the remedy based on, what that response is.
Well, and that's great that we're talking about the remedies, because I think a lot of people have no clue what they are. Most people, know what arnica is, and that's probably as far as homeopathy goes in most people's minds. So the remedy it's not medicine that's doing the work for the body. It's nudging the body to do the work itself. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. It's the catalyst.
Right. And so many people, especially North Americans, feel the medicine is supposed to fix us, right? We have a headache, we take a pain medication or a migraine or a fever or whatever the case may be, and the medicine makes us feel better for a short period of time. Whereas homeopathic remedy is, as you mentioned, the catalyst. So we're listening to the body versus just palliating a condition.
That's exactly right. And I feel like when you think about medicine this way, and you just think about our approach to living in general, we're told how to think and behave from such a young age that many of us lose our spark very early on and don't even know who we are outside of, what people have told us to be. And I feel like modern medicine is very much that way. It's, be quiet, we're not that interested in what the body has to say. We know better. This is what the body should be saying, and we'll beat the body into submission until it does what we want. And don't get me wrong, modern medicine has a really important role to play in the healing process. And there are certain situations in which, for a period of time, you may need to palliate something, or turn things off, or suppress things.
And we have to recognize there's more out there. And again, back to the whole North American medicine piece, we're probably the only country that is that fixated in palliating conditions. I mean, homeopathy is the second most widely practiced medicine in the world, except for in North America. But why is that? Why are you, like you mentioned, being conditioned to just accepting the way things are? And, oh, you have high blood pressure. I guess I have to go on high blood pressure medication now. Or you have diabetes. We got to deal with that. Or, oh, you have cancer. Let's take you through the regimen for treating that, rather than being more open-minded and saying, yes, this is maybe what we have to do, but let's explore all the options, because there's a lot of stuff out there and we're really complex beings. And another thing I love about homeopathy is it's not one size fits all. And it's not until you dig deep into that person, as we mentioned earlier, the spiritual, the emotional, the mental, the physical pieces, before we can even determine what that medicine looks like. So it's really powerful stuff. So I am extremely passionate about cell salts, also called tissue salts, and I know that you are as well. You teach a course at the college on it, and I loved taking your course. So I thought maybe it'd be fun to have a little conversation about them, because it's something that I've been posting a lot about lately. And why don't you explain in your own words what a tissue salt or a cell salt is?
Sure. I've seen your posts and I love them.
Oh, thank you.
It's great to see tissue salts being shared. I find them to be fascinating. Tissue salts were kind of the concept of them came through Wilhelm Schussler. And he was interested in the 12 inorganic salts that make up all of the tissues in our body. And so if a human body is burned, what is left are the 12 tissue salts. And we need them in order to maintain proper balance in our systems. And what's interesting to me about the tissue salts as compared to a mineral supplement, for example, is that I feel like the tissue salts kind of live in this world where it's, kind of a cross between a mineral supplement and a homeopathic remedy. And so I love the fact that they are made specifically to enter directly into the cells and provide the cells with the, correct amounts that the cells need, versus the body having to break things down. In that I was saying that they seem to be kind of a cross between a mineral supplement and a homeopathic remedy, is because they still act as that catalyst that, right, as we were talking earlier, like a homeopathic remedy does, while simultaneously helping the body to resolve deficiency issues.
So a question I have for you about tissue salts, and I know you use them in your practice, and I recommend them to friends, and I use them myself, obviously, is you mentioned the concept of a supplement. So let's say cramps, leg cramps. So we know that's probably a magnesium deficiency. So is that something that you would take a Magphos tissue salt for a short period of time to kind of resolve the deficiency, and then maybe consider taking long-term or longer term a magnesium supplement? Or would we take a Magphos for a longer period of time and then feel like the situation has resolved itself and then just take it as needed as cramps arise? What would you say to that?
That's a great question. Again, probably, the answer to any question that you ask a homeopath is it depends.
Right. Yes.
So I think certainly anytime I see that, like anytime I see cramps and or a craving for chocolate in my practice, I almost always recommend both a magnesium supplement and Magphos. And the reason for that is that I do feel like most people are deficient in magnesium, and most people are living high stress all the time.
Yeah.
And so I see the magnesium supplement being so helpful, especially if they take it before bed to help sleep, which is so good for cleansing and healing. And, you know, but then the Magphos tissue salt will ensure that the cells then take that magnesium that we know is ample in the diet now. And also I'll recommend, just increasing magnesium rich foods.
Of course.
And then utilizing that magnesium properly. So ensuring that it gets into the cells and it gets to the places in the body that it needs to go to. Sometimes you fix all of those things and there's still a problem.
Right.
And so, I would always be also looking for what homeopathic remedy do they need in order to, help resolve those underlying issues that might be contributing to the deficiency to begin with.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I find they're great for those acute flare-ups. And then it gives you an opportunity to investigate further what is going on this is chronically happening. And I mean, we're not getting the same level of nutrition and minerals from our food supply anymore. So we're all deficient in many of these minerals. I do think it's beneficial for everybody to have all 12 in their medicine cabinet, because it's a natural source of medicine versus, looking for the anti-inflammatory or the Myadol for cramps. It's a better, much healthier, more natural option. So why not?
Absolutely. And the fact that there are only 12 of them and they're not very expensive, it's so easy to have a little first aid kit. And I recommend this so often for parents, because all of us have been there in the middle of the night, the child with a fever, and you're freaking out. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I can remember a few occasions where my kids had a fever in the middle of the night. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to give them these tissue salts quickly while I look up what remedy they need. And by the time I decide what remedy to give, they've gone back to sleep and everything's fine.
Amazing.
I would share my favorite combination. I think combination that I might recommend this most often in my practice is Magphos and Caliphos together as a nerve nutrient. Again, just because I see so much anxiety and stress, that those two together really help to build a healthy nervous system. To your question earlier about supplement versus tissue salt, like for cramps, for example, the tissue salts do act really quickly, just like homeopathic remedies do. And, I think that's another benefit to using homeopathy and tissue salts above other available modalities, is because it gets right into the cells and tells your body what to do immediately. And so, somebody who's experiencing period cramps in the moment and be carrying Magphos with them and take it and get immediate relief. And as you say, without having to go to Advil or Midol.
Right. Yeah.
else that people are usually reaching for. And
Yeah.
it is such a shame that more people don't know about this and know
Mhm.
that this is available, and it's, less expensive than that stuff and actually healthy for your body and encouraging your body to heal. Whereas, there are side effects, there are problems, there are consequences to taking all of that other stuff. So,
Mhm.
why not try the more gentle option first?
So you also use a lot of herbal treatments in your practice. I know that that's something you're also really passionate about. Can you share a little bit about the benefits of using herbs to heal?
Sure, I'd love to. Yes, I love plants, and I love connecting with plants. And I think that can be an important part of the healing process for people. Sometimes something that, um, there's so many things that I love about homeopathy, but one thing that concerns me sometimes about the healing process through homeopathy is
Mm.
that it still is this, the patient goes to homeopath, the homeopath, does all of this kind of heady work to decide what remedy the person needs. And so there's kind of a disconnect, I think, a little bit between the person and their own healing. And I do love um, people being more involved with the in the case of herbs, with those herbs themselves and relationships that can be built. Like, I love to grow herbs and smell them, and have them in tea, have them in tincture,
Mm.
um, and create that relationship, I guess, with the plants.
Mm.
To me, herbal knowledge, and also knowledge about, how to grow food and
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
preserve, and like all of these to me are fundamental things that we should be passing down from generation to generation and not giving over to other people to do for us.
Mhm.
And so, I'm really passionate about that, and I love that I'm seeing that in the world. I love that, more and more people are taking interest in growing their own pharmacy in their garden, and growing their own food, and doing their own preserves. And I think it's important for us in so many ways. And part of the reason why it is a healing process and connects us with our food, with our medicine, with ourselves. I would say in my practice, the homeopathic remedy is still kind of what I call the star of the show.
Mm.
It's still the thing that I feel is the most fundamental piece. And then I, also recommend herbs and tissue salts and, dietary and lifestyle suggestions as an add-on. I think all of them together, work really well synergistically.
Mm.
But I really use herbs more as a supporting role. So, for example, I tend towards just single herb um, recommendations. Sometimes I do recommend a combination. It depends on, what somebody's going through.
Mhm.
Um, but really, I'm looking to recommend herbs that, if I see that a particular organ needs some, further assistance, maybe somebody has some liver issues, and I know that the homeopathic remedy is going to facilitate that, and tissue salts are going to facilitate that, and the changes in diet are going to facilitate that. But I'm going to want to recommend an herb that's going to help to cleanse and rebuild that organ as well. And I think that really helps to speed up the healing process. And so I guess a way that I might be using herbs that might be different than the average herbalist is because I'm still trying to stick with the homeopathic principles.
Mhm.
And so, just to kind of review those a little bit, is the idea that we're trying not to use opposites. And so, and that's a question that I get a lot from homeopathic students and from some of my colleagues. Like, how are you using homeopathy, especially because I do practice more classical homeopathy? How are you using herbs and homeopathy together? because the philosophy behind homeopathy can contravene. I mean, Hahnemann talks about this in the Organon on several occasions where, and other writings where he's bothered by, people using valerian or chamomile as a means to calm the nervous system, for example, because the secondary effect of that is, of course, going to be a re-stimulation of the system that you originally were calming down. And so I tend to not recommend herbs that I know are going to have that type of effect that's really strong, or I might tend towards more of a tea versus something stronger like a tincture or something like that if I feel like it's needed. So let's say, for example, let's talk about somebody who has sleeping issues. You know what? They might need something a little bit stronger at the beginning. And they might need that because they are so chronically deprived of sleep. And there's so many things going on that I know it's going to take a little while for the homeopathic remedy to really do the work that it needs to get under the issues that have been there for so long. And so maybe I will have them take for a period of time an herb that I know is going to help calm their nervous system before sleep. And there's that magnesium again that we talked about. I might recommend that before bed too. But ultimately, it's the homeopathic remedy that I want to resolve what the underlying issue is, so that eventually they don't need to, take the herbs anymore. So, yeah, I would say I'm using them more, nutritively. That's another great way to use herbs. We were talking earlier about building a strong nervous system, which I see so often. And I love the combination of caliphos and magphos tissue salt, and then pairing that with milky oat tincture. I think that's just such a beautiful blend for somebody who needs some strengthening in terms of their nervous system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As particularly if you're really high strung, really stressed out, your nervous system's completely out of whack, or you're not sleeping and you're not able to heal, then nothing's going to work. Even a homeopathic remedy is going to take that much longer. So if you can kind of correct that deficiency in terms of helping them get some good sleep, helping them calm the nervous system, then everything just works so much better.
I think, so one of the questions I get sometimes too is, like, how do you know what's working, right? If you're starting multiple things at once.
That's true. Yeah.
I do try to be mindful of that. Like, I try not to pile too many things on at once. And I don't think that that's great for the body anyway. And it's certainly not great for the checkbook. So, trying to, sometimes I'll just start with a remedy to see how far can we get with the remedy and what's left over that I might want to tidy up with some other recommendations. Sometimes you see someone for the first time and you just know that any suggestion that's going to involve a change in diet or lifestyle, or even drinking a cup of tea, is going to make them not come back for their follow-up appointments. It's just way more than what they're going to be able to manage in their life. And so that I'm mindful of as well. And so, I might not introduce something right away, but then, you have other clients that sometimes just you want to throw everything that you have in your tool belt at the situation and try to get things cleaned up as quickly as possible for someone. And that seems like the right way to go. And then you don't worry too much about what's working as long as it is working. And then you can always work at, kind of removing things as time goes on as they're feeling better.
Yeah, I think actually my next question was going to be, a lot of people are drinking a lot of herbal teas these days, and, valerian root for sleep or chamomile tea for sleep, and they're doing it every single day. And I don't think people realize that herbs are really powerful. And if your body changes in any way, shape, or form, or you're noticing different things, because some of them can have a counter effect. So you think you're taking it for great sleep, and then your sleep is affected, you're not making that connection. So what would you say about people experimenting with herbs, herbals, or plants on their own to be kind of aware of, or as a cautionary?
Yeah, and I also just feel like there's different levels of herbs too, right? Some herbal teas that I think are going to be fine for people to be having every day. But if you're trying to tackle a chronic issue with an herbal tea, you
Right.
probably should be working with a professional so that somebody is tracking what's going on. Because you're absolutely right. There are things that can go awry that, people may not realize. And as you pointed out, they might think that, an herb is helping with sleep for a period of time, and for a period of time it might, but then it might start exacerbating the situation. You may not realize that. But I think anytime anybody is in a situation where they feel like if they stop taking something, everything's going to come back,
Right.
At the same degree or with a vengeance, then you know that you should be working with someone.
There's a lot to learn, and we don't, obviously we don't want to scare people away from experimenting and trying things and learning, but I think you have to do research. And on that note, do you have a kind of a book on plants that maybe for the beginner could potentially, do you have a recommendation?
For a beginner, Rosemary Gladstar has written several books that are wonderful. There's Medicinal Herbs, A Beginner's Guide. It's
Okay.
wonderful.
Great.
But she's got a lot of other really nice books on a variety of topics, like herbs for stress and anxiety, herbal healing for women, men, herbs for common ailments. So, but herbal healing for women has long been a favorite book of mine for sure. But for somebody who is really excited about herbs and thinks that they want to grow and even make their own medicine, there is a book. It's called Self-Sufficient Herbalism by Lucy Jones.
Okay.
And this is probably like my most exciting herbal book, honestly. It's really, she's a very inspiring woman. And so, yeah, for anybody who's interested in making their own medicine.
So what do you think is the future of homeopathy? What do you think it looks like?
I mean, I would love to see homeopathy in hospitals. I love how patients are triaged in places like India, for example, where you go in and based on what it is that you have, they're making a decision whether or not you are better suited towards seeing a homeopathic doctor or a medical doctor. And, I imagine in some cases both. I took my daughter to the emergency one day. She got hit in the eye with a swing. And of course, I gave her remedies on the way and while we were waiting in the waiting room. But I thought, goodness, it would be so easy to just have a homeopath here, giving arnica to anybody who comes in with an injury. It's so inexpensive and so easy. So I'd love to see that. I mean, I definitely homeopathy is going to play a big role in the future of medicine. Everyone, or majority of people at this point, I think, are recognizing that things are not working. Even where our systems in place are, better than most, we still have gaping holes. I think homeopathy can play a vital role in so many ways. In particular, like I have quite a bit of experience working with homeopathy in pregnancy and labor and postpartum care. So that's an area that I would just love to see flourish. And because it's so gentle, you can avoid so many interventions using homeopathy in pregnancy and in the labor room. So wonderful for infants. And that whole area, I mean, there's so many things that can't be used or are dangerous to use. Yeah. So, to me, that would be a place that I would love to see homeopathy really leading the way. And then also geriatric care.
Right.
Homeopathy is, again, so inexpensive. It's incredibly powerful. It can play a huge role in contributing to the quality of life of people, prevents people from having to go on medication, which is hard on the body.
Mm-hmm. I would love to see more people use it pre-pregnancy. So, I mean, there's a, I don't know if it's a big movement or more and more people are understanding how important it is to get to be as healthy as you possibly can be before you decide to have a family. Because that's you're growing a baby, you want to have all the healthiest parts of you available.
There's been several studies conducted showing that homeopathy affects epigenetics. And so I think that that's really significant and exciting,
Mm-hmm.
and absolutely can pave the pathway for an easier pregnancy, a healthier baby,
Right.
a happier mom.
Mm-hmm. That's part of my platform, and my passion is sharing what I'm learning and the journey and sharing what homeopathy is. Because as I mentioned earlier, most people don't have a clue outside of that arnica that maybe they've heard about or used maybe one time in their lifetime. There's a lot that it can do and be helpful with. And it is inexpensive medicine, and it is long lasting, and it can actually heal and cure versus palliate, which is what modern medicine does.
It's certainly transformed my life, and I know it has yours as well.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be who I am.
Yeah, and I'm sure your kids feel the same way.
Yeah, that's been really exciting. Raising kids, understanding and knowing homeopathy, and
Mm-hmm.
having them ask for remedies by name that
Mm-hmm.
they need is very exciting.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
my stepson plays rugby. And after every game, he's banged up and bruised, and he goes, "Where's that arnica?" I feel like my kids are like little baby birds. I'm constantly just dropping things in their mouth, and my husband too. Thankfully, they're all open and receptive to it. But they recognize, they feel better. It's really
And
cool.
to what we were talking about earlier in terms of that disconnect, um, having homeopathy and tissue salts and herbs present in life from a
Mm-hmm.
young age puts a young person in touch with their body,
Mm.
and participating in that important conversation. It's the most important conversation.
Yeah. I agree. Well, thanks again, Andrea. I really appreciate your time and your knowledge and for sharing. And this has been really fun.
Super fun for me as well, and I'm so happy to know you.
Aw.